It's funny how people suddenly remember your worth when they need something. For years, my parents made it clear I was on my own. Not just in words, in action, in silence, in the way they looked at me like I was asking for too much just by hoping for support. Now they're back in my life, not with apologies, not with reflection, but with a request. And they brought her name with them. The one person I thought I'd finally left in the past. My sister. Let me take you back. I grew up in a very traditional household, or at least, that's what my parents like to call it. Discipline over affection. Self-reliance over support. Independence, even when it bordered on neglect. My mom, Helen, taught piano at the local community center. She was the kind of woman who wore soft scarves and hard expressions. My father, Gerald, ran a local hardware store that hadn't turned a real profit since the 90s. He'd pore over invoices late into the night, muttering about the younger generation not knowing how to work with their hands. And then there was me, their firstborn, the test subject. From the time I was a kid, they made it clear, no handouts, no shortcuts, no softness. They didn't believe in emotional validation, they believed in building character. Every scraped knee, every missed birthday party, every failure at school, I was told to suck it up, to be a man, to figure it out. When I got accepted into college, a solid public university, nothing flashy, I remember the pride swelling in my chest. For a moment, I thought maybe this was it. Maybe this would be the thing that made them look at me and say, "We're proud of you." Instead, they sat me down with matching stone faces and dropped their verdict like a legal sentence. "We're not paying for your education. If you want to go, find a way. You're 18 now. No congratulations. No excitement. Just that." They framed it as a virtue. "We didn't get any help either," my dad said. "And we turned out just fine." My mother chimed in with her usual dagger of wisdom. "Debt is poison. You want to tie yourself to a bank for 30 years? Be my guest." I didn't want luxury. I didn't want a free ride. I just wanted a chance. Something, anything, that said, "We believe in you." But they gave me nothing. It wasn't just that they refused to help. It was how coldly they did it. Like it was some kind of moral victory to deny your own child the one thing that could change his future. I worked 3 jobs. I took the maximum in federal loans. My grandfather, bless his soul, quietly co-signed a private loan for me without ever telling my parents. I never told them either. And that's how I survived. I learned to live on instant noodles and expired groceries. I studied at night in fluorescent-lit libraries and slept in dorm rooms where the radiator never worked. But I made it through. I graduated. I found work. And little by little, I built a life that didn't depend on anyone. Meanwhile, there was my sister, Sabrina, 3 years younger, and the complete opposite of me in every way. Loud, charming, dramatic. The kind of girl who always had people wrapped around her finger, including our parents. Where I got lectures, she got excuses. Where I was told to earn it, she was handed things just because she was still figuring herself out. She didn't go to college. Didn't need to. She bounced from one expensive hobby to another. First it was photography, then yoga retreats, then spiritual consulting. Every time she failed or lost interest, my parents found a new way to spin it as growth. They always saw her as special. And me? Just the one who complained too much. 5 years ago, I invited my family to Christmas dinner. It was a big moment for me. My first real apartment, paid with my own money. I scrubbed every inch, bought a second-hand tree, even learned to cook a proper turkey. It was supposed to be a turning point, a symbol. Instead, it was the last time I let them in. Sabrina showed up late, dressed like she was walking into an awards ceremony, dragging her new boyfriend, a pompous tech bro named Oliver who clearly thought my 2-bedroom was beneath him. They scanned my place with smirks, made passive-aggressive comments about the furniture, the modest decor, the neighborhood vibe. But the final blow? Sabrina raised her wine glass with a smirk and said, "Well, you've done okay for yourself. I mean, considering Mom and Dad left you out in the cold." I froze. It wasn't what she said. It was how casual it was. Like it was a joke. Like the years I fought for my survival were just a punchline to her. I looked at her, then at my parents, who didn't say a word. Just sipped their wine. And I snapped. I told her if she was so disgusted by what I'd built, she could get out and take her trust fund boyfriend with her. She rolled her eyes. "Relax. I was just being honest." And she left, stormed out like a victim. I never spoke to her again. And my parents? They called the next day to say I overreacted. That Sabrina was just being playful, that she didn't mean any harm. I said, "Maybe not. But she caused harm. And you let her. Then I blocked them too. 5 full years of silence. Until yesterday. They showed up at my apartment. Older. Quieter. Faces lined with uncertainty. I knew something was coming. I just didn't know how pathetic it would be. Sabrina's getting married, my mom said, smiling like it was supposed to mean something to me. We're helping fund the wedding. But it's gotten more expensive than we thought. Then came the punchline. We were hoping. Maybe you could help cover the rest. I stared at them, stunned. And I asked the question that had burned in my chest since I was 18. Where was this generosity when I needed it? They had no answer. So I gave them mine. You told me borrowing money was shameful, that asking for help was weakness. I remember those words. Do you? They left in silence. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. People say college is the best time of your life. I wouldn't know. For me, it was the most exhausting, soul-grinding, character-defining era I've ever endured, not because of parties or freedom or self-discovery, but because I had to survive it with nothing. No safety net. No emotional support. And certainly no financial backup. After my parents shut the door on helping me with tuition, I sat in my bedroom, door locked, blinds drawn, and stared at the acceptance letter that had made me feel, for one brief moment, like I could finally belong somewhere. But that feeling didn't last long. My options? Drop out before I even started, or fight tooth and nail. I chose to fight. I applied for every grant, every obscure scholarship, every aid package with an essay prompt attached. I worked part-time all summer stacking shelves and bussing tables just to pay for my first semester's books. When that wasn't enough, I turned to the only family member who had ever shown me quiet kindness, my grandfather. A war veteran, stoic and soft-spoken, with arthritic hands and a gaze that said more than words ever could. I didn't even have to finish my sentence. He co-signed a loan without hesitation. Don't tell your parents, he said. This is between you and me. I never did. And with that signature, I bought my chance. College wasn't glamorous. I didn't join a fraternity. I didn't go to football games. I didn't get lost in late-night pizza runs or make memories I'd one day cherish. I worked. I studied by the light of a flickering desk lamp while the guy in the dorm next door blasted EDM at 2 a.m. I took early morning shifts cleaning classrooms and late-night shifts at a campus diner, where I learned how to fake a smile and flip pancakes on 3 hours of sleep. There were days I went without meals. Days when I'd sit outside lecture halls with my stomach aching, pretending to be on a call so no one would see I couldn't afford lunch. And all the while, I watched other students get care packages, financial boosts, weekend trips home. Me? I got silence. Every phone call with my parents was the same. You chose this path. Don't come running back. We didn't need help when we were your age. That last one always hit the hardest. Because I had read their stories. My dad's uncle paid for his first truck. My mom's mother let her live at home rent-free until 28. They did get help. They just didn't want to admit it. Still, I kept going. Because I had something they never did, the determination to break the cycle. And I graduated. Not with honors. Not with fanfare. But I walked across that stage, diploma in hand, and finally breathed. I thought maybe that would change things. That maybe, just maybe, they'd look at me with something other than indifference. Maybe now that I'd earned it, like they said I had to, I'd be worthy of their attention. Instead, at my graduation lunch, a modest affair I paid for myself, my dad said, "Well, I guess you proved us wrong. Guess you didn't need our help after all." And my mom? She smiled and added, "See? Struggle builds character." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was the final nail in the coffin. In their minds, they hadn't failed me. They trained me. And I realized something terrifying. They would never see what they did as wrong, because their pride wouldn't let them. So I stopped looking for validation. Stopped hoping they'd wake up one day and say, "We were too hard on you. We should have done more." I buried the need for their approval like a bone too heavy to carry. I built my life with my own hands. I paid off the first of my student loans before I turned 30. I got promoted. I saved. I built a clean, quiet home. No one yelling. No one belittling. No guilt. And for a while, I was at peace. Until my past showed up on my doorstep, not asking for forgiveness, but asking for money. To pay for a wedding. A dress. A venue. A catering spread that probably cost more than my entire 4-year degree. I stared at them, my mother and father, now older, grayer, suddenly so gentle in their tone, and I thought about those nights I cried into my pillow, About those weeks I lived on peanut butter and dignity. And now they wanted help. Now they saw value in me. Not because they realized what they'd done, but because their golden child needed something, and I had it. That's not family. That's extraction. After that visit, I couldn't sleep. I kept pacing my apartment, staring at the same spot on the kitchen floor where my parents had sat just hours earlier. Calmly, confidently asking for thousands of dollars like it was nothing. Like the past didn't exist. Like they hadn't told me, years ago, that asking for help was a form of weakness. I pulled out an old box from the back of my closet, the one with photos, graduation cords, the handwritten budget I kept for my freshman year. $8.42. That was how much I had left in my checking account one September weekend in college. I had circled the number with red ink, just to remind myself how close I'd come to calling it quits. And they wanted me to fund a wedding? For Sabrina? The same Sabrina who hadn't spoken to me in half a decade? The same Sabrina who humiliated me in front of everyone I invited to my Christmas dinner? Who mocked my furniture, my neighborhood, my life? It wasn't just offensive. It was insulting. But I needed clarity. So I called my cousin Layla, the only one in the family who'd ever treated me like a human being and not just a name on a family tree. "Did you hear about Sabrina's wedding?" I asked. Her response? A sigh, then silence. Then, "They've been bragging about it for months. She's calling it a Regency-themed destination affair. Apparently, it's in the Hamptons. Custom floral arrangements. Vintage violinists. Guests wearing pastels only." I almost dropped the phone. It wasn't a wedding. It was a production. Layla continued. "They've already put down non-refundable deposits. Thousands. And now they're realizing they can't afford the rest." It all clicked. They didn't come to me because they wanted to reconnect. They came to me because I was the backup plan. Because I was stable, responsible, the boring one who always landed on his feet. And they assumed, just assumed, that I'd bail them out like I owed them something. I told Layla everything. About the college years. About Sabrina's cruelty. About how my parents sat in my kitchen and didn't even flinch when I reminded them of the choices they made. Layla was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "They've always let Sabrina get away with everything. They never let her fail. You failed once, and they never let you forget it." She was right. A week later, the texts started coming. First from my mother. "Just checking in. Did you think about what we discussed?" Then my father. "We understand if it's not ideal timing, but this is important to us." And finally, from Sabrina herself. Yes, she had the nerve to text me. Her message? "I heard Mom and Dad came by. I'm guessing you're doing your usual martyr routine. Look, if you don't want to help, fine. But don't make this about you." For once, I stared at her words. Not a "how are you?" Not a "sorry for what I said back then." Not a "congrats on building your life." Just ego. Entitlement. Disdain. She wasn't just ungrateful. She was convinced she deserved this. And that's when it all crystallized. This wasn't about the wedding. It wasn't about family. It was about control. For years, they had treated me like the cautionary tale, the one they could measure Sabrina against to make her shine brighter. The one they ignored until they needed someone dependable, someone who didn't make a scene, someone who had learned not to expect anything back. Well, not anymore. The next day, I sent a single text to the family group chat. I paid for my own future with blood, sweat, and silence. If you can't do the same for a party, that's not my problem. Consider this my RSVP. I'm not coming. And then I blocked them all. After I sent that final message, I expected the silence. I expected the anger too. What I didn't expect was how good it felt. For once, I wasn't the one compromising. I wasn't the one trying to keep the peace or be the bigger person. I wasn't trying to earn affection that was never mine to begin with. I had nothing left to prove. And in that silence, I finally felt free. But of course, people like my parents and Sabrina don't let go that easily. The first sign of trouble came 2 weeks before the wedding. A friend of mine, who worked in event logistics, messaged me. "Is it true Sabrina's wedding is falling apart? My company just got a cancellation request from a high-end Hampton venue with her name on the file." I stared at the message for a full minute, blinking in disbelief. They had actually tried to book a venue that expensive, without full payment secured. Of course they had. They were banking on me saying yes. And when I didn't, everything began to collapse. The next few days were a mess of secondhand updates and whispers from extended family. Apparently, vendors were pulling out. Florists were demanding balances. The violinist canceled after a deposit bounced. But the final blow? The groom's parents found out that Sabrina's parents, mine, had lied about their finances. They were under the impression the wedding was fully paid for by the family, that it was a gift. Instead, it was a web of desperation and IOUs. The groom's parents were livid. They saw it as a stain on their family's image, being tied to a union built on deception and drama. And then, the wedding was postponed. Indefinitely. I didn't gloat. I didn't text anyone. I didn't post some passive-aggressive quote online. I just sat in the quiet. But I can't lie, it felt like justice. Not revenge. Not cruelty. Just balance. For the first time in my life, they were feeling a fraction of the embarrassment and betrayal they so casually dumped on me for years. And then came the twist I never expected. A knock at my door. I opened it to find Layla standing there, disheveled, anxious, holding a folder. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Can I come in?" she asked. We sat. No small talk. No warm-up. She handed me the folder. Inside, photocopies of emails. Letters. One was from my grandfather's lawyer. Layla took a shaky breath. "You deserve to know the truth. Your parents, they weren't just being stingy. They hid money. From you. From your grandfather. From everyone." I blinked. "What?" "He left you money. After he passed. Not a ton, but enough to pay off your student loans completely. He asked your parents to deliver it. They never did." My stomach dropped. "They cashed the check. Redirected it to their own account. Told the lawyer you declined the gift because you wanted to stand on your own." I felt my heart race. My skin went cold. My own parents stole from me. After all I went through. After all they put me through. Layla added, quietly, "I found this when going through old estate records. I thought you knew. I'm so sorry." I didn't speak. I couldn't. Because everything, every doubt, every unanswered question, every moment I wondered if I'd imagined their cruelty, it all made horrible, perfect sense now. They didn't just fail me. They robbed me. And Sabrina? She sent one last message. A voice note this time. Her voice cracked, angry and tearful. "I hope you're happy. You ruined everything. You always wanted to be the victim. But you're just bitter. You'll die alone, and no one will care." I didn't reply. Because what do you say to someone who's drowning in their own delusion? Today, I'm at peace. I used that truth and Layla's support to take legal action. Quietly. Precisely. And the funds my grandfather left me? I finally received them. Too late to save me back then, but just in time to remind me of my worth. Final reflection. Sometimes, family is just the first wound you learn to stop reopening. I am not cold. I am not bitter. I am free. And that is more than they'll ever understand.